So this part of the program was supposed to be an interview with Ron DeSantis. Unfortunately, that fell through as the candidate canceled his morning schedule today to travel back to New Hampshire for events this afternoon. We also did invite former President Donald Trump for an interview, and that invitation was not accepted. But we're not leaving you empty-handed here. We get to bring back our two Steves, Steve Negron and Steve Marchand. We won't say who's the better Steve. All Steves are equal on this program.
It's a tie. It's a tie.
So let's start off with Ron DeSantis. Here we have yet another example of somebody who is coming in at the top of their game at the beginning of this process, and then they end up humbled at the end, and they've squandered everything. Steve Negron, what the heck happened to Ron DeSantis?
Well, I got to tell you, anybody who's running New Hampshire, right, you got to sprint to the finish line. It doesn't matter how you start out. And so, quite frankly, I was very impressed with Governor DeSantis when he came out. He'd done a lot of stuff in Florida that I thought he could parlay that, from a statewide activity into a national kind of perspective. And it just never manifested that way. I don't know why that happened. Clearly what was very disappointing in Iowa, and then him not being here in New Hampshire, we talked about this earlier, yet New Hampshire voters, they're smart voters, they're educated voters. You got to keep them interested until the very last moment. And I think by not being a participant here at the very end on the sprint, I think it's going to hurt him in the long run, clearly.
Yeah, and it almost wasn't seemingly intentional. So DeSantis had this very odd setup this year where he had a campaign and he also had a super PAC, and he would kind of bounce back and forth. Sometimes the right hand and the left hand didn't know what they were doing, and obviously they can't coordinate. So there was some confusion back and forth there. But Steve Marchand, what happened to Ron DeSantis? He was there in the polls. He was close to Trump. What do you think happened that he just couldn't finish the job?
On a macro level, not just New Hampshire, I think he was trying to communicate the following. I'm everything you like about Donald Trump without all the things that he thought maybe you didn't like so much about Donald Trump. It turns out a lot of what he thought people didn't like about Trump is actually what they do like about him. The bombast, the rhetoric, the machismo. That's part of it. I mean, DeSantis, forget policy. He is charisma challenged, and Trump, whatever you think of him, and I'm no fan, he has a form of charisma that is undeniable and that creates tremendous energy in a significant percentage of the population. To try to out-Trump Trump is a fool's errand, so I think he started by going after the wrong audience. It was an audience that he was never going to be able to tap into. And as people got to know him better, the lack of charisma, the lack of sort of natural energy, that likability, the more you got to know him, I think the less you were going to like him.
Yeah, and I will say that it's very rare to see candidates improve in this process, but he did get better from when he started to when he is here now, and back and forth, of course. But so we'll see. Maybe 2028, we'll see what he can put together in the long term.
Adam, some of the things that have happened to President Trump over the last 6-8 months, I think have galvanized him. They look at him as like, there was a guy, Beria, who was Stalin's chief of the secret police. And he famously said, just bring me the man and I'll find the crime. And so I think that has galvanized his base and some more, even people that just want to have a fair process in this political process.
And Steve Marchand, you are a political gourmet, even though you are a Democrat. So you're like a very wide taste. You went to the Trump rally last night. What stood out to you?
Wow. We had our Republican friends from Missouri. They came in. I promised them I'd show them everything. I delivered on the promise. We went to the Haley event. Those were people looking to be persuaded. We went to the Trump event, first and only one I've ever been to. Those were not persuasion voters. Those were people ready to rock and roll, completely different type of electorate, completely different energy level. There's a lot of stuff that Trump said that I had to really control myself. And yet I'm watching the crowd reaction. People, the energy level, the devotion. I better understand after spending an evening there how difficult it will be for anybody, Nikki Haley, DeSantis, any of the others that dropped out. They're trying to climb a mountain that I'm not sure in 2024 is climbable. And if Nikki Haley doesn't get to at least a certain pretty high number, well into the 40s, I would think, on Tuesday, I'm not sure it's going to go much further either.
It's a visceral, emotional connection for sure. And Steve, you've led this as the congressional nominee in 2018 and 2020. How hard is that turnaround if Donald Trump is the nominee again? For everyone else on the ticket, you're going to face potentially a headwind with those independent voters who don't necessarily like Trump, even if they might be open to a Republican candidate.
Right, and he knows that. I think that certainly the campaign is very well aware that he has to turn some of those voters. But at the end of the day, you're going to have a choice, right? What didn't happen in 20 was that there wasn't a record that he could contrast himself with Biden. There's a record now. And I think that's going to be what he needs to focus on, and then that'll, hopefully bring in some of those undeclared voters.
And as we wrap up here, Steve Marchand, the future of the primary, do you think that this institution is going to weather the storm that it's in right now?
I do, and I think what Scott Spradling said in the last segment is true. We have two presidents, former and current, running. This is unprecedented, certainly since the 1800s, and unprecedented in our history. That is warping a lot of what we're seeing. I believe in 28 we're going to have potentially the wildness of the 2016 Republican primary with the wildness of the 2020 Democratic primary. It could be as wide open as we've ever seen. We will be here for it, and I think it's going to be very exciting and important.
All right, Steve Marchand, Steve Negron, thank you so much for your insight. We'll see you back here on Close Up a little bit later in the electoral process. Maybe April, May, we'll check in again.
You got it.
Sounds good.
Appreciate the time.